Last month, the Biden administration said, speaking of money, they want to study reparations.
My ancestors literally built this country for free.
And you are not your ancestors.
I'm a descendant of those ancestors.
I know, but okay.
Hey, listen, when a debt is old, a debt is old. Period.
But you've got a lot of money, so you say you should get more.
Should I get more?
Well, no.
Hey, this is what I want. Put it like this. America, just treat black people like they're F-35 fighter jets. You had $1.7 trillion to throw at that shit. Throw it at the people who actually built this country. I don't see how anybody can dispute that.
But again, you didn't build this country.
That's true.
So what?
You personally did.
So what? I'm a descendant.
But I'm saying we can't write a check to a ghost.
Why not?
Why not?
All right, guys, so we got to talk about Leonard McKelvey, a.k.a. Charlamagne the Devil, because he is calling Democrats cowards and saying that he will not endorse Joe Biden. However, there's a catch. Charlamagne, while he will not endorse Joe Biden, is saying that, well, I'm not going to endorse him, but I'm going to vote for democracy, right? Which basically means that he's going to do what everybody thought he was going to do, which is to fold and to vote for Joe Biden, which, in my opinion, I think is funny because he's calling Democrats cowards while at the same time making a coward move of voting for Joe Biden, despite the fact that he knows that Joe Biden is a terrible president. So I want to react to this. Specifically, I want to react to Anna Kasparian covering Charlamagne Tha God's interview with the New York Times, where he talks about why he is endorsing Joe Biden, but he's still going to vote for him. So without further ado, let's get into it.
If somebody like, John Carl says to me, well, and this happens, it's in the interview, you can watch it. Well, President Biden says these things too about Donald Trump. Why don't you think it resonates? And I say because he's an uninspiring candidate who doesn't have any main character energy. I tell people all the time, if you lie to them about Democrats, they won't believe you when you tell them the truth about Republicans. So why would I sit there and lie to people about the flaws I see in the Democratic Party?
Charlamagne Tha God sat down with New York Times reporter Lulu Garcia-Navarro to discuss where he stands on the general election. There's been a lot of hubbub about how Charlamagne's been too critical about Biden. Is he gonna vote for Trump? What's happening here? As the Times reports, Charlamagne endorsed the Biden-Harris ticket. This time around, Charlamagne has said he won't endorse anyone and has been outspoken in his criticism of Biden and the Democrats, leading to questions about where he stands politically and what he wants to do with his significant platform. So here's more of what he has to say about where he stands politically.
There's not a show I've been on. When they ask me about Donald Trump, I say the same thing. He's a threat to democracy. He literally said, let's suspend the Constitution to overthrow the results of an election. You saw his lawyers in the court saying, well, he never agreed to support the Constitution. He led an insurrection of this country. But if somebody like, John Carl says to me, well, and this happens, it's in the interview, you can watch it. Well, President Biden says these things too about Donald Trump. Why don't you think it resonates? And I say because he's an uninspiring candidate who doesn't have any main character energy.
Now, true. I mean, I personally agree with what he had to say there, especially that last part. And it's something we've been talking about on this show for many, many months. And if you're at all confused about whether Charlamagne Tha God might consider voting for Trump, you should listen to this.
This is probably the most consequential election of my lifetime, 45. I'm not gonna say of all time, but it's hard to get people to believe that because we say that about every presidential election. Because every Republican candidate has been demonized in that way. So now that you really do have the wolf out there, you look like the party who cried wolf because you put everything on the same scale.
I mean, now again, here's the problem with Charlamagne. Okay, Charlamagne is basically making the argument that, well, Democrats treat all Republicans as if they are the Antichrist, right? He is called Trump the Antichrist. Basically saying, well, Democrats try to say, well, all Republicans are a threat, and, they exaggerate and they talk about how bad Republicans are. And they do that so much that when it comes to Trump, who he feels is an actual real threat, it just doesn't resonate the same way. Except Trump is not a real threat, right? Democrats are exaggerating about Trump, but apparently Charlamagne Tha God has been brainwashed when it comes to these exaggerations from the Democrats when they talk about Trump. That's what really blows my mind. I really don't understand. I don't get it. Apparently he understands that, okay, Democrats have been capping about the threat that Republicans are to this country. Every election cycle, again, they try to say, well, it's the election of our lifetimes. But this one, though, oh, this one really matters. Like, Trump actually really is a threat to democracy, right? And it's like, okay, Charlamagne, if you know that Democrats were lying before, why would you believe him this time when it comes to Trump? Well, Charlamagne, again, is one of these people that believes that January 6th was actually an insurrection, which is an NPC line of thinking, because anybody with two brain cells to rub together knows that January 6th was not a real insurrection, especially, again, after the facts came out, after we saw the footage from January 6th. Okay, that was not a real insurrection. Nobody was really in danger in regards to, politicians or anything like that. Yes, some people were, being violent, but for the most part, a lot of the people that got arrested that are serving prison and jail time, they were non-violent, okay? And, usually Charlamagne would stand up for those types of people, but because they're white and Trump supporters, I guess he's going to not stand up for them this time. But with that being said, again, this is the type of brainwashing that has worked on people like Charlamagne Tha God, even though he acknowledges that, yeah, Democrats do this type of brainwashing every election season when it comes to Republicans, right? It's just so funny to me how that works. And that's why I'm so frustrated with this guy, because he knows how bad Joe Biden is, but because he's a leftist, okay, and because he's also a black radio personality, there's a ton of pressure on him to support Democrats no matter what. So this guy has been coming out here and pretending like he's some type of critical thinker, that he's so nuanced, and that, he's not a Democrat Party operative, and that he's not going to vote blue no matter who. And then he comes out and says, well, I'm still going to vote for Joe Biden, right? This is what he's about to say, right? He's going to vote for Joe Biden, right? That's what he's going to do. Same thing with Stephen A. Smith. Oh, Joe Biden so bad. Democrats so bad. I hate them when it comes to these policies. But you're still going to vote for Joe Biden. Now, it's one thing if he comes out here and says, hey, I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden, but I'm also not going to vote for Trump, which, again, would be a W for Trump. I wouldn't, be upset with Charlamagne Tha God if he came out and said that, because that would actually require some cojones, okay? That would actually make sense. But to be so upset with Joe Biden, but to vote for him anyways because you hate Trump, to me is crazy, especially considering how the country is in a much better place under Trump than Joe Biden. And even Charlamagne knows that. But again, he's been brainwashed by this whole democracy nonsense from Democrats. But yet he claims that, oh, well, I know that Democrats exaggerate about the threat that Republicans are every election. But this time, though, I'm going to fall for it, right? I'm going to fall for it, and I'm still going to fall in line and vote for Joe Biden, even though I don't like him.
Hearing you, and the thing that I'm hearing you say is that you believe that Trump is the wolf at the door, that democracy is under threat. And I've also heard you say, I will not endorse President Biden and Kamala Harris.
What does that have to do with voting, though? I've never said I'm not voting. If I'm laying it out right there on the table, and I'm telling you that I'm voting to preserve democracy, who do you think out of those two options is willing to preserve democracy?
So Waz, obviously he's going to vote for Biden. The only difference between this election cycle and the last election cycle is that he's not going around endorsing Biden. He's going to, just vote for him. He doesn't love that he has to vote for him, but he gonna lick the boot. That's what he gonna do, right? That's what he gonna continue to stay on the Democrat plantation, because he knows that, well, if I leave, they're going to strip me of my blackness, right? They're gonna say, you ain't black, right? That's what Joe Biden told Charlamagne to his face. You ain't black if you don't vote for me. And guess what? It worked, right? It works. You're seeing it right here. It works. This guy knows that Joe Biden is terrible, but he's still going to line up and vote for him anyways. Again, he doesn't have to vote for Trump. He can say, look, I'm not going to endorse Joe Biden, but I'm also not going to vote for him
either, right? And I'm not going to vote for Trump. I'm just going to sit it out. Which, hey, again, that's a position that I can respect. But again, this guy is so brainwashed that Joe Biden can tell him to his face, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black, okay? And then have a terrible economy, wide open border, basically run this country off of a cliff. Charlamagne Tha God acknowledges that's what's happening. He knows that this guy is terrible. And Charlamagne Tha God lines up and votes for Joe Biden again. So not only can a Democrat disrespect a black liberal to their face, okay, but they also can have a terrible administration, and this man is still going to vote for Biden. Again, this is the problem when it comes to how black people vote in this country. It really is. When people talk about why black folks can't get ahead politically, it's because no other demographic of individuals votes like this. Maybe except, single women, right? That's the next demographic, okay? Single, unmarried women that vote for Democrats at this type of clip. But when you talk about racial lines, nobody else does this. Asians don't do it. Hispanics don't do it. Whites don't do it. Nobody does this except black folks. You can be disrespected. You can have terrible administration, terrible results. Well, I think Trump bad. And you know the crazy part about it? I just did a video earlier today of black voters in Georgia who have switched from the Democrat Party and have decided to become independent or Republican. They're deciding to vote for Trump. Because at least they're smart enough to understand that, hey, maybe I might not like the guy, but look at the results. Look at the results. And furthermore, when it comes to the polls and the rest of the American people, they're not falling for this democracy nonsense. Because when you look at the polls, you can see that Biden doesn't really have an advantage when it comes to democracy, right? It's basically a wash at this point. Well, why is it a wash? Well, the reason why is because people can see that Democrats are full of shit when it comes to that, right? Democrats are full-blown fascists, right? They're authoritarians. I'm so serious. And that's not an exaggeration. This guy, Joe Biden, is constantly trying to overrule the Supreme Court, okay? Not listen to their rulings. This guy, the Democrat Party, basically had a fake primary where they kept Joe Biden's opponents off the ballot. This guy, under his administration, has had left-wing extremists commit acts of political and domestic violence, okay, throughout all of his presidency. Okay, we don't have any law and order in this country. This guy tried to force an experimental vaccine onto all of the American public. Again, ignoring the Supreme Court in the process of doing so. This guy has weaponized the government to try to censor speech that he doesn't like, that's not favorable towards Democrats. These are things that I would define as a threat to democracy. Okay? And the American people, unlike Charlamagne Tha God, are smart enough to see that, okay, when it comes to this whole democracy thing, Democrats are kind of full of it, especially considering how these people are the OG election deniers, right? They've been denying the outcome of elections that don't go their way since Bush. But Charlamagne Tha God, who claims to be a critical thinker, a nuanced thinker, for whatever reason, isn't seeing the nuance and isn't critically thinking about the whole democracy propaganda that the Democrat Party is spewing. Again, that's what really blows my mind. Everybody else is seeing it, okay, when it comes to, again, the democracy nonsense from Democrats, except Charlamagne Tha God. He's not seeing it. Stephen A. Smith is not seeing it. They're going to line up and vote Democrat no matter what because their jobs are at stake. I don't think they even have the option not to vote for Joe Biden. I think if Charlamagne came out and said, I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden, he'd lose his job. I think if Stephen A. came out and said, I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden, he'd lose his job. This is why they always have to tell you, while they're trashing Joe Biden, that, oh, Trump's so bad, threat to democracy, I don't like Trump, but I'm also going to vote for Joe Biden, right? They always got to tell you, hey, I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. They always have to tell you that. Because they have to make sure that their handlers understand that, hey, I'm not really going to fall out of line. Okay? I'm not going to say great things about Joe, but I'm not going to fall. I'm still going to vote for him. And I'm going to let the world know I'm going to vote for him. He could have voted for Joe Biden in silence. He chose not to do that. He announced it. Same thing Stephen A. Smith did. Again, there's a reason for that. These people are on a leash. I'm so serious.
Sees Trump as a threat to democracy and feels that he has no choice but to cast the ballot for Joe Biden. But like, the thing that drives me nuts is that people are mad at him for not happily and loudly endorsing Biden. And my answer to them is, who gives it? Who cares? Okay, you're not entitled to that. No one is entitled to having any public figure or media personality or celebrity running around endorsing a totally mediocre candidate who has failed to deliver on his own agenda in the first term that he served.
Pausing.
Yeah, so you're seeing that, you heard that, okay? So Charlamagne, Stephen A, they've already let us know where they're at, right? They'll come out here and they'll, say, whatever about Biden, okay? They'll complain, okay, about his policies, and then they'll turn around and vote for these same policies. Again, they don't even have the cojones just to say, hey, I'm not gonna vote, right? It really is a damn shame how these people are just stuck voting for Democrats forever, right? And I really do think that part of it has to do with the fact that if they're gonna keep their jobs, their careers, they have to come out here and to say that they're gonna vote Democrat, or else they will lose their jobs. They won't have a career. I really believe that has to be a part of the equation, because otherwise, I really don't understand that. I really don't get it. It makes zero sense to me outside of that explanation. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.